Good evening, Source Nation. Good evening, and welcome to another Sexual Health Talk podcast with Dr. Julissa. I am your host, Kathy B, and we are so excited to have you guys back in the studio with us tonight. We have a dynamic topic to share with you all. But before I do that, I would love for you, Dr. Julissa, to take a moment to introduce yourself to the Source Nation family and everyone here on Facebook.
Hello, my beautiful friends. Hello, Source Radio family, SRN Live family. So happy to be here with all of you. I am Dr. Julissa, and empowering you to experience epic sexual health is what I absolutely love to do. I've been doing so for over 20 years as a board-certified naturopathic doctor, and honored to be a part of this amazing family with you, Kathy. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I love it. I love it. I tell you, I'm excited because, Source Nation, Dr. Julissa and I are getting ready to go into our 8th year together. And we have been bringing you guys some great shows, and definitely this one will be on one of your favorite lists as well. So tonight's conversation is all about when she wants more sex. Now, what do we do, Source Nation, when this particular topic comes up in the bedroom? And I want to talk about initiating. Who's supposed to initiate the sex in the bedroom? Now, I'm going to tell you, Dr. Julissa, over the years that I have been doing relationship shows, this has been one of the areas where men and women had something completely different. Where the women that I've talked to over the years have said, well, I prefer my husband, my boyfriend, my partner to initiate. And then I've had men say, hey, that's my place. I am supposed to do that. So let's talk about that, Dr. Julissa, and get the dynamics of initiation and who's supposed to initiate.
Wonderful, wonderful. Love that you brought that insight. And let's begin with, I guess, piggybacking off our last show where we were discussing about how a man feels when he's constantly rejected and what starts happening within the relationship when the woman is constantly rejecting him. He does try to initiate sex. And when she then feels that she is the one that needs to initiate it. So we're continuing with that Mars and Venus dynamic. And when you say that in all these years that you have been talking about relationship dynamics, that's important to see that, yes, we are completely different. Men are one way, women are another way. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So we're continuing with that Mars and Venus bedroom conversation. And you're right, if that's what you've been hearing all that time, that he asks for something and she asks for something different. So, or she feels something different. So we're going to continue with this section of when a woman wants more sex. And I'll start with the first paragraph so we can enter that conversation and what you just mentioned. Fair enough?
Okay, sounds great.
Okay. When a man doesn't initiate sex because he might get burned by rejection, right? He has to wait for her. Now, this is all coming into what we were discussing. When the woman has constantly been rejecting him and he feels deeply that constant rejection, this is what may happen. When the man doesn't initiate it, it's because he might get burned again by rejection. He has to wait for her. When he feels he always has to wait for his partner to initiate sex, he eventually loses his desire and doesn't even know why. When this happens, the pendulum swings the other way and he wants sex less than she does. Quite commonly, the woman begins to panic a bit. So This dynamic that we're talking about here is coming in because he is constantly being concerned about being rejected. He feels, what's the point? When I touch her, when I feel the urge and I see her and I'm aroused by her, she pushes me away, or she tells me no, or she gives me an excuse.
Mhm.
What happens with time is he eventually is going to not continue to initiate. And then he just feels, well, I need to wait for her to do it, because now she's panicking because he's not initiating, and
Mhm.
he's starting to lose that interest.
Mhm. I like that you said that, and I want to ask you a question. Source,
Mhm.
you've been with me for a very long time. You know, I always say communication is key. So when this is happening, Dr. Julissa, and if you've ever experienced this with your clients, um, is it because she is not satisfied, or is something that she would like to do and maybe she has not been able to express it? So instead of expressing how she feels or what she desires to have, she turns to the no, not tonight, I'm not feeling well. Could that very well be that she's unable to communicate her desires and this is what she displays?
That's very possible. That could be a definite dynamic there. However, I feel it's very unique to each and every woman. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We did discuss on prior shows about how when her mate has maybe disappointed her, or
Mm-hmm.
I had another interview where I spoke to a relationship expert, and he mentioned that sometimes a woman would maybe sometimes be faking it from the very beginning, and then eventually when she, you know, feels very comfortable in the relationship, feels that she wants to push it away. So it's very key. I love that you always touch upon the communication aspect. It is key for this to be established, talking
Mm-hmm.
through, expressing what each of you like and such. So I do feel that that's part of it, and could be uniquely different reasons for everyone.
Okay. Good information. Thank you.
In continuing, the next paragraph states, she begins to miss sex and want it more. The more she wants it, however, the more he seems to lose his desire for it. Her desire for more becomes a message that he is not measuring up. Whatever desire he still has is quickly turned off. Sex is a very delicate balance, and men are more vulnerable than women to an imbalance. If a man wants sex more than a woman does and can patiently persist in initiating sex respectfully, he will gradually win a woman over and sweep her off her feet, and automatically she will want to have sex.
Mm. Good information there. Good information. Source
Mhm.
Nation and our Facebook family, you're watching live right here on Sexual Health Talk Podcast with Dr. Julissa. Tonight's conversation is all about when she wants more sex. So I tell you, Dr. Julissa, you're dropping some jewels right here. So if you will please continue, and we can share with Source Nation more details in reference to our topic tonight.
Right. So I'm actually treating a couple right now that I'm helping them conceive their second baby. They have tried conceiving for a year, and they approached me because of that difficulty, and we're working to get them pregnant. Now, in her consultation with me, she expressed that she wants it more, that she is a bit aggressive. She is an entrepreneur, so is he. They both have a business together and such. And that's the challenge there, that he feels it's a chore. He feels
Mm.
it's a job, and he no longer really enjoys it. So it's difficult for the man to respond in that way, and for him to feel that arousal for her, because that's very key. He's so sensitive to that, and women don't take that into account. They feel that rejection is just, you know, a common thing, that's just normal, but that rejection really, truly, deeply hurts a man, and
Mm.
will affect his performance in every way. So it continues to say, when a woman consistently wants sex more than he does and expresses her unhappy feelings about it, a man can start to feel really turned off. He begins to feel as if he is obligated to have sex and has to perform for her. Women already understand how performance pressure can numb their own arousal. With men, the effect of performance pressure is 10 times greater.
Wow.
About that so far.
Mm. I mean, just listening to that, to know that is a man's or a male stressor in the bedroom is unique. I never heard that before. So how would you address that issue if he is feeling like that? What's the best way to do that?
Explain to the female counterpart how that deeply is something that affects a man. It's not that necessarily he may have a physical issue, because then men start worrying. They really sometimes don't know why they're turned off. Then they start becoming worried and thinking that it's actually a physical issue. Oh, do I have impotence? Am I having issues with erectile dysfunction? But when I see another beautiful woman on the television or in the street, I get an erection. I've heard that many times from clients and patients that come in that are having some sort of sexual dysfunction challenges. And he feels aroused with another, for example, attractive woman either on television or walking in the street, but then with his partner who has rejected him continuously over the years, he then has problems responding. Right? And so even the issue of a man considering, okay, well, I must not have erection problems because I wake up every morning with erections. His body won't want to do that either if he knows, right? If he knows that it's going to be a no 90% of the time, why even try? And it's damaging when a woman does that and doesn't take that into account. So it's important for them to dialogue, for her to share. You do turn me on. The reason why I said it is because I was feeling this way, and it's my fault that I'm holding on to the grudges from work, or it's my fault that I constantly, bring my outside problems from the world into our bedroom, or right now I'm dealing with a sick mother, and it's so difficult for my body to get into that mode. I'm sorry. And if that comes out, that can shift things. All right. Apart from me working on the physical aspect and feeding their bodies whatever it needs to correct any true physical imbalances, this is more on an emotionally deep level, right? And emotions affect the body physically. So
I'm glad you said that, because I want to transition into rejection. And my question would be, if there is rejection there, can there be a comeback from that? And just hearing you say, explaining, if you are rejecting, you're explaining why, but yet you're saying, I still want to be with you. I still want to be intimate. I still love you, but this is what's going on. Really to soften it to where it isn't a rejection. And I think that if a woman is saying something in that aspect, she then too has to be able to explain why, instead of leaving it there. Because I can see where the man will become stressed from her eyes, and then he sees himself in a different area, and there's another woman. and I know Source Nation, you've heard this term, catering to the needs.
right, because she's not, because
physically, but she may be dressed up and her hair is combed, or the way that she walks, he sees that and it triggers something. So am I in the ballpark, Dr. Julissa, as to what you were saying?
you're there where that can this take away the anxiety that the man may feel in thinking that he then has a physical problem. Sadly, sometimes they'll want to prove to themselves, no, it's not me. I can perform with this one. It's definitely, her. But it has to be worked out between them. And but it's possible to correct that. So I am going to go into the solution in a moment.
Okay.
Yes. Now, after that aspect with men, the effect of performance pressure is 10 times greater. A man cannot fake his arousal as a woman can. If he is not getting hard and erect, it is clear that he is not getting into it. Disclaimer, we want to be sure that all of you are most definitely over 18 years and older. All right. It's clear that he is not getting into it. A woman can easily hide her lack of arousal and pretend that everything is fine. A man cannot. This increased sensitivity makes the pressure greater on a man. This greater pressure can immediately prevent him from getting aroused. If he feels he has to perform or become erect, nothing, and I mean nothing, happens down there.
Yeah. I just listening to you, and I can recall a couple shows that I've done over the years where that has happened, and it seems as though the relationship is spiraling to where both the woman and the man are unable to come back from that. So, or they've chosen, I'll just say that, because you've said that yes, you can do that. So it's interesting to know that you can turn this situation around. So I would like for you, Dr. Julissa, to talk to us, if you don't mind. What's the solution? Because I truly believe relationships, when you come together and if you're desiring to stay together, you can create the path of longevity. Even if something such as this happens in the bedroom, if you both have the mindset of remaining together, through thick and thin, then if this area comes up, we know how to take care of it. So how would we do that, Dr. Julie? So what's the solution to that?
All right, well, here it is. What she can do when he's not in the mood. Many couples just give up at this point. The woman senses the embarrassment he feels and backs off. Obviously, the embarrassment he feels when he can't respond or obtain an erection. She doesn't know what to do. If she talks about it, he feels blamed. And if she makes sexual moves, he just feels tired or not in the mood. Fortunately, there are solutions to this problem. Just as a man can share a quickie with his partner when she is not in the mood for sex, a woman can apply certain skills when her partner is not in the mood. So here we go as far as that's concerned. Before I even mention that, can you guess what she may have to do?
Just a wild guess. Maybe implement foreplay.
Mm-hmm. Now, remember that we mentioned that when she initiates, he feels like he's not measuring up. So let's see what happens here.
Okay.
At one point, now here's a story of David and Sue. So let's go into the story of David and Sue. At one point in their relationship, David and Sue found that she began to want sex a lot more than he did. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to pause here as well, because let's say it's also not because of rejection. Let's just say that. Let's say it's because of hormonal imbalances. Let's say it's because the man's testosterone levels are low. And let's say it's because a woman, as time goes on and we start getting into the changes of life, of course, it's just a natural state wherein a woman tends to go to her sexual peak later in life, while a man is in his sexual peak in his 20s. A woman may start getting there after the age of 35, 40, 45. So David and Sue found that she began to want sex a lot more than he did. Sue was frequently in the mood, and David happily responded when she initiated sex. For several weeks, everything worked great. They had sex several times a week and sometimes twice a day. Eventually, though, David began to wear out. This was a new experience for him. He had never felt a woman wanting it more than he did. At first, he didn't know how to say no and would go ahead and have sex even if he didn't want to. This was not a good idea. Quite quickly, he began to feel pressure to perform. Sex was no longer fun. It was some kind of a duty or obligation, and that just didn't feel good. To prevent feeling that way again, he decided he would have to say no. So now it was him rejecting her. It still wasn't clear to him how he could say no without rejecting Sue or hurting her feelings. Mind you, most of the time it's the woman hurting the man's feelings, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When he came home from the office one evening, she cuddled up next to him on the couch while he was watching the news. After a few minutes, she started to gently stroke his thighs. Trying not to be rude, he put his hand on hers to stop her movement and said, "I am so tired tonight. I really need to watch the news." Then, not wanting to sound too rejecting, he added without thinking, "Why don't you go upstairs and start, and then I'll join you later." So what he meant was for her to start initiating touching herself masturbation. David went back to watching TV and gradually forgot all about the exchange. He was tired and about ready to fall asleep when 45 minutes later, he heard a little voice from upstairs saying, "David, I'm ready." It was like a miracle. Suddenly, from the waist down, he was immediately awake. He said, "I'll be right up." When he got into bed, Sue was already prepared for an orgasm because she'd just spent the last 45 minutes becoming more and more aroused, fantasizing about David making love to her while she caressed herself. It was no wonder that after about 2 minutes of penetration, she had an orgasm. A few seconds later, he had his. She was happy getting the sex she wanted, and it was a heavenly experience for David, even better than a quickie, because he didn't have to perform in any way, and he still got to do the honors and give her an orgasm. End of section. How did that feel to you?
That is great. That is great. I wouldn't have imagined he would have said to her, "You go and take care of yourself, and then I will come in and finish up."
Well, he said, "Start without me." Now,
Start
mind you,
without me, right?
right. Now, mind you, the whole premise of the sex part and for him to truly feel like a man is knowing that he is giving her the orgasm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So she started warming herself up, closing her eyes, imagining
Right.
her husband making love to her, imagining David making love to her, imagining, him touching her and doing everything. And so that brought her into such a state of arousal. She's ready. She's ready for him. And now he doesn't have to do so much, even though he has to do by giving her the orgasm. That's where he feels accomplished. That's where he feels like, I did it. Does that make sense? And then
Yes.
she also feels fulfilled because he's the one that gave it to her. He's still doing her. We did talk about another show, right?
Yes. Love it. Great information, Dr. Julissa. Of course, guys, you have been watching Sexual Health Talk Podcast with Dr. Julissa, and I am your host, Kathy B. Great information that we've shared tonight. You know, Dr. Julissa, I always like to leave either with some encouraging word or maybe some tips and advice that we have not shared in tonight's conversation. If you wish to do so, you can at this time.
Right. Thank you, Kathy. Well, with all of this information that we've been sharing with you, we have so much material to keep going and sharing with all of you within this dynamic of Mars and Venus and the teachings regarding Dr. John Gray. Let's keep embracing the fact that we are not the same.
Mhm.
Women are different, men are different. And until we can openly embrace that, it's going to be difficult to truly have the communication and the vulnerability, as you said, Kathy, that we need to have with each other, to share, to discuss, so that we're very open to arousal and epic sex, epic legendary connection and love, right? So it continues next week with talking about pleasure.
Ooh, I love that. Okay. Well, Source Nation, you heard it right there from Dr. Julissa in reference to when she wants more sex. So if you have not tuned in from the beginning, definitely go back and watch the replay because, as Dr. Julissa said, we have a plethora of information that will be shared over the next few weeks. What we want to do, Source Nation, is really create an understanding with couples, especially in the room. We know that we all have dealt with a lot of themes on the outside, but your bedroom should be the most sacred place where anything that is said, anything that is done is in the bedroom for you two and no one else. The experience, the exchange is beautiful. And that's where we want to be. We want to make sure that we're creating what I say longevity. And it takes place between two when you can truly understand where you want to go. So go back, take a look at the series that we have created for you over the last few weeks, and definitely continue to come back where you can get more information. So therefore you and your partner will be satisfied and you're heading the track of longevity. Guys, thank you so much. You've been watching live right here on Sensual Health Talk Podcast with Dr. Julissa. I'm your host, Kathy B. Please come back to see us every single Thursday right here on Facebook at 9 p.m. You guys have a wonderful evening and a dynamic weekend, and we'll see you all again next week. Good night.
Good night.